Hello, I hope you're doing well. My name is Jacqueline Vino from Galasso Learning Solutions, and welcome to the Genuine Learning blog. Today, we are going to discuss a fairly brief exposure draft that was issued by the AICPA. In total, the exposure draft is only about 20 pages long, so nothing too crazy. And we are going to be talking about the proposed SSAE that applies to review engagements in particular. So we are not talking about examinations or agreed upon procedures, just review engagements in this scenario. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look at this exposure draft. So as you can see here, this exposure draft is actually addressing scope limitations in review engagements, and this was issued by the AICPA on February 27th of this year. And just to give you a little bit of background on this exposure draft is actually part of the ASB's much larger project to significantly amend the attestation standards, which we can expect around Q4 of next year. So there's a large overhaul that we know is coming soon that the ASB is working on, and they actually issued this exposure draft to address one particular practice issue in the meantime. So you might be asking yourself, okay, well, what is this actual practice issue that prompted this exposure draft? And the answer is that this issue stems from developments in the international standards that are related to sustainability reporting. So there have been recent EU regulations. They are introducing more detailed sustainability disclosure requirements. And what happens is sometimes a US CPA firm might be asked to review some of these disclosures on sustainability before we have the updated and revised AICPA attestation standards, which again, we are not expecting until Q4 of 2026. So why is this going to be a challenge for US practitioners? So US CPA firms are required to perform review engagements under the US attestation standards, right? That goes without saying. However, they might also need to apply the international standards, especially if you find yourself working at a firm that does a lot of international reporting requirements. So since the international sustainability standards are very extensive, they're evolving, they're quite detailed, and the fact that review engagements are designed to obtain limited assurance, practitioners might struggle to actually obtain sufficient appropriate evidence for some of these sustainability disclosures. And as a result of that, if we are unable to achieve that sufficient appropriate review evidence, we are going to have a scope limitation as a result. So in essence, the reason we have this exposure draft is really due to a timing issue. The international standards have already been updated, and basically the US is just trying to work to catch up to have something in the meantime while we wait for the larger updates that are coming. So as you can see here, what we have done is included a screenshot that we have from the current guidance. So it basically says that when a practitioner encounters a scope limitation during a review engagement, the practitioner should pretty much just withdraw from the engagement whenever possible under applicable laws and regulations. So how does this compare to the international standards that have already been updated? Basically, they updated them for the sustainability, and they basically allow the practitioner to issue either a qualified conclusion or a disclaimer when a scope limitation exists. So as you can see here, we have pretty much a direct contrast. So according to our AICPA standards, as opposed to having the option to issue a qualified conclusion or a disclaimer, we are supposed to withdraw whenever possible under law and regulation. So you might be asking yourself, what is actually the update from this proposed exposure draft? And this would basically catch us up to the international standards. So it would permit us as US practitioners to issue either a qualified conclusion or a disclaimer of conclusion in an attestation review whenever we have a scope limitation that exists, just like the international standards. Now, I do want to point out really the impact of the standard here. Again, for the US, pretty much going to have slim impact if you are finding yourself working at a small firm and if you're not doing these types of engagements. However, for firms that do a lot of international reporting requirements, this is where we can see an issue, and this is where this exposure draft might actually have some impact for you. So what is the proposed effective date? So if this exposure draft ends up getting approved and issued as a final standard, the proposed SSAE would become effective for practitioner review reports dated on or after December 15th of 2026, with early adoption also permitted, of course. And when is the comment period going to expire? So comments on this exposure draft are due by May 30th, so you still have some time to submit a comment if you want to. So as you can see, there are lots of very exciting developments at the AICPA, and although this one is primarily due to a timing issue, we can expect lots of future updates as well in this topic. So thank you so much for tuning into this blog. Once again, my name is Jacqueline Vino from Galasso Learning Solutions, and I hope to see you again on a future blog.